Mr. President, I rise to speak about the devastating tax and spend policies we will shortly be debating here. First, I want to differentiate between the bipartisan infrastructure legislation we're currently debating and the separate, looming debate on my Democratic colleagues' $3.5 trillion reckless tax and spend proposals. Senators on both sides of the aisle have long agreed to the need to modernize and expand our hard infrastructure, including transportation systems and broadband networks. We've done so in a bipartisan manner. Infrastructure investments have traditionally been accomplished through bipartisanship and regular order. Traditional hard infrastructure investments include funding of roads and bridges, transit, rail, airports, drinking water and wastewater infrastructure, ports and inland waterways, water storage, and broadband infrastructure. The bipartisan infrastructure bill we are considering today focuses on those core elements and is built around several vetted, unanimously consented committee-passed bills. It includes a number of priorities important to Idaho, including billions of dollars for roads, highways, and bridges, funding for high-speed internet and broadband infrastructure deployment, millions in water infrastructure, including for groundwater storage and conveyance, funding for resiliency against natural disasters like wildfires and droughts, a reauthorization of the Secure Rural Schools program, and much more. It does not raise taxes. It reprioritizes the use of certain unused COVID relief funds from previous spending bills away from bailouts and idle funds and towards supply-side investments that will provide benefits to the American people for many years. Because this infrastructure spending focuses on long-term productivity rather than near-term demand, it will not be inflationary. In fact, it will counteract the inflationary pressures we are now seeing as a result of the excessive spending in this Congress. This is especially critical right now, as rising prices are impacting families and small businesses across America. In June, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that consumer prices were up 5.4% over 1 year ago, the largest increase since August 2008. Consumer price inflation has been accelerating since the beginning of the year, and American families pay the price. In the past year, gas prices have increased 45.1%. The cost for major appliances has increased 13.7%. Airfares have increased 24.6%, and the list goes on. A recent University of Michigan survey showed that consumers expect prices to rise 4.8% over the next 12 months. And a National Federation of Independent Business survey found that 47% of companies are increasing average selling prices, up 7 percentage points from May, and the highest share in 4 decades. Economists on both sides of the aisle have warned that excessive, non-productive spending could put us in this position. And despite these warnings, in March, the Democrats passed a nearly $2 trillion in purported COVID relief spending on top of the nearly $4 trillion that had already been spent. A fraction of this $2 trillion was actually pandemic-related. That poorly targeted package has grown the national debt, spurred inflation, and discouraged workers from returning to the workforce. Now, Democrats are proposing to spend an additional $3.5 trillion to balloon the federal government even more. And that's just the advertised price. According to the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the Democrats' new legislation will actually cost closer to $5 to $5.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Democrats intend to couple this runaway spending with job and growth-killing tax hikes to create and establish their reckless spree of tax and spend policies. They intend to go it alone with this social spending spree through another budget reconciliation process in a 50-50 tied Senate, which is willfully partisan. Yet amazingly, despite having the tools to raise the debt limit within this process, Democrats want to ignore the debt implications of their reckless budget. If the Democrats are going to cram down this massive tax and spending spree, they will have to deal with the debt limit themselves. Yet they don't include dealing with their irresponsible growth of our debt in their bill.